Wake up. Wake up, creator. This is the beginning of your story. It starts with nothing. Nothing but an infinite void. However, you, with a single touch, can awaken the light. A creator's purpose was always that of an observer, to simply admire the fleeting beauty of life's beginnings and ends.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
What would you do with power? The Universim, developed by Crytivo. Most building sims are straightforward. Build your city, control your people, defend your people, and manage them. It's almost like you're the god of the game. Well, the Universim takes this to literal meaning. The Universim is a god simulator where you oversee your people, known as nuggets, a growing civilization, while making sure people believe in you, the creator, which you could do by displaying your god powers or influencing the nuggets in some way. Currently, the Universim starts in the Stone Age and ends just before the Space Age, although there are more developments planned to add even more content in the near future. This game was released on Steam in late 2018 in beta and now still resides in beta with content updates, like I mentioned before, being made. So now that we've mentioned what this game is really all about, we're now going to be talking about the pros of the game, and we're first going to be starting on the basic information about the game. The first piece of the basic info I wanted to mention were the graphics and visuals about Universim. And from what I found is that they are very simple, to be blunt. But for this kind of game it works because most of the things in this game look really simple, but done in such a way that it looks complex in a way. So everything looks visually stunning, but in a simple way. And I'm going to show a couple examples right now of the sun shining through the planet when it's winter time. It's very simple, but it works for this kind of game. So I actually really adore the graphics for this game. It's straight to the point, and I think the graphics do justice for this game. Moving on to the animations of the game, if you look very closely from afar, kind of like with the graphics, you would say that the animations and the graphics are very simple, but it's when you really pay close attention you realize how good the animations are in this game. When you're noticing the nuggets running around building stuff, the animations are actually pretty cool. And with the simple graphics and the simple animation, it really just meshes together well. And that's why I don't really have a problem with the animations of the graphics. And I actually rather tend to like and just watch the nuggets go on throughout their day. And it just looks good. So with that front, I think the graphics are actually not that bad. And the animations as well, I think, are pretty good. Now this next one kind of meshes together with the basic info, and that deals with the audio of the game, the audio files. Are they really good? Yeah, they're actually very, very solid. And something that I would note is that some of them are really loud. It's just like when a UFO approaches your planet and it blasts off, you're gonna hear that no matter where you are on the planet. It's very loud. The sounds of the sirens when a windstorm's approaching, or a sandstorm, is approaching your population, it's very loud. Your thunder is very loud, and even though it may have been my options, now that I think about it, that made those sounds loud, they do sound very good. And that's good that this game in beta and early access already has those basic components kind of already tied in together, so that when the game builds upon it in the near future, it could even become better. But before I do move on to the next topic, something I did want to mention were the unique designs and buildings. As you progress throughout the game, when you notice your civilization advancing through time, everything does change, and when you look closely, the designs of the nuggets and the buildings and the animations for that drastically improve as well, and makes everything look visually stunning. So that is something to notice. So I was really pleased to see, especially when I started going from the Stone Age into like the medieval era, there was a drastic improvement in everything, I would say, and it made the game a lot more engaging than if it was just really simple animations and graphics. Now on this next topic, when I do thinking about building sims, they usually end up telling you how to play the game, but the Universim does it in a very unique way, where they provide narration, but the narration is provided by an older gentleman, but they make it so that it's in a funny way. And for some people that might be a turn off. They may say the narration is annoying, but I find it kind of funny and engaging because it makes you pay a little more attention to what's going on throughout the game. And when I do think about other building sims, they do have tips on how to play the game, but they don't do it in such a way where you're so engaged into the game that you skip through the entire how to play things because you want to figure it out on your own. But the Universim, since it does it in a really funny way, it kind of makes you more focused in the game. For example, when a major event is happening within your population or something noticeable, a typical game of building sims would just make a notification or fly you over to what's happening. But this one provides narration, and it kind of explains, in some instances it's very vague and doesn't necessarily what you have to do. But since the narration is there, you know something major is happening, and it leads you to a big hint on what you should do. So that's why I really like the narration about this game. And like I said, it may be a turn off for people, but I like it. Now the reason why I'm doing reviews, and even now, is because, as some of you may know, this kind of started as a senior project when I was in high school, and we were reviewing early access game. And I've always said that Daniel, who was my partner throughout the project, is that the Universim was a game I wish I could have reviewed when we were doing the project, because it has so much potential and it can really be a hidden gem within the Steam community. I kind of think it's already somewhat of a hidden gem in early access, but once it's not in its beta form, I can see a lot of people flocking to this game if it goes into the direction I think it's gonna go. The reason I state that is that something I've noticed while having the game is that the developers really do care about this game. And something that you can see in other early access games is that the developers just give up on the game, or they don't really seem to be quite engaged with their users throughout the game. But you can tell the Universim developers really care about how this game is played, about how the users feel about the game. Because I remember when I first started playing the game, there was a lack of content, a serious lack of content. But now when I started play the game again, you can really tell that they changed quite a bit, and they do give updates, which most good developers should do, and they even have a Discord server and advertise it properly. So you do really see that they truly care about what you think about the game, what you think changes should be made to the game, and that's something noteworthy, because after reviewing quite a few early access games or small developer games, unfortunately there are many out there where the developers kind of don't have that connection with the users, and this is a game where I can see that being a strong connection. So that is more or less all the basic information of the pros that I think are good for the game. Now we're going to be moving on to the gameplay of the game, on what gamers like you and me truly care. How does the game play? How does it feel? So we're going to be getting into and talking about a few of the things I've noticed that are good about the game, gameplay wise. The very first aspect I wanted to mention about the gameplay in the Universim is that when playing the Universim, it's a very simple game to play, meaning that it's just like any other building sim, but it does its gameplay in a different and unique way. The game, like I mentioned before, starts you out as the creator, watching over your people in a sense, and you get to observe them, making sure that they're going in the right path, helping them on in the way, in a very creator godlike fashion. And it's a game where in its gameplay you can be very involved in the Nuggets day-to-day functions, overseeing what they do, or you can be very laid back and kind of just watch in the front seat what's going on, even though I wouldn't really recommend that. I would be heavily involved because some of their actions are very, very poor, but it's fun. That's what makes it fun, because you get to mess with your population. In other building sims, when you mess with your people, your population, the people you're supposed to manage, it usually tends to have very negative effects. And the Universim is very similar in that sense, but I would say it's fun to do so. So there is that incentive that you would want to mess around with the game, see what does what. It's kind of very fun just to mess around with your creator abilities and see what they do and how the nuggets react. And that's what makes the Universim fun to play in a very simple way. And that's what you're going to be hearing a lot throughout this review, is that it's very simple, straight to the point, but from what it does well, it really nails into the point that it's fun. So when you first hear about how you are the creator of your game, which is like other sims, but you're the god of your people, and you have these abilities which can include commencing meteor showers on a certain spot, completely changing the seasons, telekinesis powers, or even just start to flash random lightnings or create thunderstorms. You would think that you're very OP in the game and that there are no limitations to what you can do, which that part may be true. However, there are limitations to what you as the creator can do, and the Universim handles that pretty well. When you are the creator of a certain people, or you're the godlike figure of a group, a collection of individuals, it really only works when they start to believe in you. And that's kind of how the system works in this game. It works by, you can really only do this godlike abilities by a certain amount of points, and it's at the top left, I believe. I'm going to point it on the screen because I can't remember its name exactly, but that point numbers is in relation to your godlike actions, meaning in such a way that your actions cost a certain amount of CP, a certain amount of points. So in order to start a meteor shower per se, that's like 300 points, and to collect those points you need more people to believe in you, and it kind of just generates over time. But with the more people believing in you, the more points you would get faster over time. And you can make more people believe in you by displaying some of your actions, such as making them fall in love with one another, or moving around a tree, or helping them out with a project, restoring a building, or even displaying one of your, or what the nuggets see as terrifying abilities. That can make them believe in you more. And I feel like that's such a unique aspect of the game, and it's what makes the Universim very interesting, and what I think one of the aspects of the game that can make it a hidden gem. It can become really fun to a massive audience as it gets more popular. I will also note, from my time of playing, I haven't really experienced too much of crazy glitches or bugs. There may be some, and I'm sure there are, but I can't even think about any crashes that I've had with the game. But that's something that I'm very impressed by this game in a beta state, that they don't really have a lot of issues such as other games, like the game we reviewed recently, Bannerlord, that has tons of crashes and issues, which, to be fair, just came out. But this game in its state, it doesn't have that legacy of Mountain Blade, so that the fact that this game doesn't have a lot of crashes, I am really impressed by that fact. Now, saying that, that is most of the issues I wanted to talk about the gameplay that I find that are very positive about the games. I think I pretty much covered everything, but now I want to move into this section where it's going to be kind of called things to know about the game. And these aren't necessarily good or bad things about the game. It kind of just really depends on how you interpret it and how you take it, or whether you like it. But this section covers more about things you should know about the game that can help you in your gameplay, make the game play a little easier, especially this game where it doesn't necessarily tell you how to play through and through. And I think some of these things you should know are very helpful. Okay, so the first thing I want to mention is that something that at the very beginning of the game, I even had to write a question in the forum because I couldn't figure it out. In order to save the game, when you start a new life or a new save of the game, you need to create a building known as the archive building in order to save your game. And I've seen in the forums and the reviews, other people have had this issue where they couldn't save the game and they couldn't know how to do it. And neither did I. But something that's really unique, there really isn't another building sim game out there where you need to construct a building in order to save the game. And I know some of you may say, well, I really don't want to play a game and play an hour just to save the game. And I'm here to tell you I hear your complaints on that, but for this game, you really just need to play 10-15 minutes of the game in order to get that building. It's like the very first building you can get or the second building you can build. So I really wouldn't be too worried about that, and that's my only problem with at the start of the game, where you need to create that building, which I just think makes things more complicated than it should be. But I see what they were trying to do, and I think it's somewhat unique, and that's why I really don't have too many issues with that now. Since this game, it's in its beta state, of course it's not even close to being finished, but something that is very noticeable when you start the game, even at the very beginning, is that there is a dramatic lack of content. But I'm here to tell you, even though that this game, you can't really play it and finish it completely, from when I started playing the game and now, there has been a dramatic increase in content, where the tech tree right now, as I'm showing it, didn't even get to that far at the end. It really kind of just stopped. And even though this game just stops randomly where you can't get certain items, they are adding it over time. So this is the kind of game where you should keep it on your wish list and keep watch, because they are slowly integrating more content, and it should be a game that you should keep your eye on, especially if you're really into building sims games, because I have seen the increase in content and I see what they're trying to do, and that it gives me hope on what they can do in the future, and I'm very pleased to see some of the changes they've made over time. The developers of this game have also created a Discord in case you have like a complaint or you want to join that Discord in order to keep in touch with the developers, updates. They do have forums as well, and they post updates, but if you want a request yourself on a complaint you have about the game, I guess you can go on there and make your voice be heard. And that's something that a lot of early access games have been promoting more, their own Discord servers, but there are a few out there that don't really heavily promote it in a cool way, such as the Universim. And that's something that more and more small developers, early access games, I think, should start to do more of, because it really makes that connection with the community and the developers that much stronger. Because without that connection, the players, the community, you can't live off of that. That's what makes you and the game popular. So that's something that I'm really happy to see about the game. Now, a lot of players, especially when it comes to building sims game, tend to ignore the instructions or the tips of the game, or maybe that's just me, I don't want to generalize, but this game, the tips are very crucial and very helpful on how the building works, what you should do with the building, or what can you expect from what you are constructing. I would really emphasize on paying attention on the tips of the game, because this game doesn't really teach you how to play, and even the narration, it highlights especially the importance of the event that's happening from the consequences of your construction. It doesn't really follow you up on what you should do next. You kind of have to figure that on your own. The tips doesn't necessarily sometimes tell you what to do exactly, but it's very helpful, and you can even find out more information about the item that you are building. So I would really pay attention to the tips. The next aspect I wanted to mention comes with organizing your city, because a lot of building sims do a really good job on organizing your buildings, formatting where certain things go, and a lot of people do find joy in that and having a very neat looking setup, especially if you're OCD. But this game, it's very hard to do that, and there are borders you can build within certain things of another building, but this game makes it a little bit more difficult to organize your city, as you can construct certain buildings and tell nuggets to put certain things in certain areas, but it's different. You are the creator, you're observing your civilization, you're just giving them a hand. So the nuggets do have the ability to construct other buildings. From what I've seen, it's really just been residential buildings or their homes essentially. They're going to build that everywhere, and when I mean everywhere, I mean everywhere. And sure, fair enough, they have to have a place to live, but that's kind of what makes it a little difficult to make your city look pretty and nice. And the Universim, I guess, makes up for it in its unique animations and nice graphics. But if you're one of those who are into organizing your city, this game, it's going to make it rather difficult for you to thrive in that sense. If that's something that bugs you or not. I don't know. I really don't have too much of an issue with it, but I can see how it can become a nuisance to another user. Something that I did notice throughout my gameplay is that it is somewhat hard to maintain a steady happiness. From what I've seen, whenever you're trying to advance your civilization or do anything kind of meaningful, whatever you try to build, it kind of pisses off the nuggets in everyone, and they can be very bad, which I haven't really seen if there's a true consequence in making everyone mad at you. I guess you kind of just lose more believers, and that can affect your total points for the faith and stuff along those lines, but I haven't really seen a true consequence based on that. But the happiness, even though towards the end of my gameplay it was very consistent, I just kind of seem a little off-put by the fact that when you try to help out your civilization by implementing more resource management, like including a gas mine or a stone refinery, it pisses them off. And that's something that I don't understand. I do, because there's more pollution, there's more crime, but at the same time I kind of find that very off-putting, because you're just trying to help your civilization. And I do feel like there should be negative consequences in order to advance your civilization, because people hate dramatic changes, and you can see that throughout history. But I feel like they should just work on the happiness mechanism. I think it could be a little more balanced and not too overreactive to certain buildings. Now that concludes everything I wanted to let you know about the game that can help you make your gameplay a lot smoother. And now I wanted to move into the negatives, because even though it's in beta and a lot of these things I didn't like about the game could change with future updates in the very near future, maybe, these are just things that I really disliked about the game. And of course, these are my opinions. I can't emphasize that enough. You can agree with them or disagree with them. These are just things I didn't necessarily like too much about the game. What the developers try to do is they try to add quests into the game in order to make the gameplay more interesting than it already is. And a lot of the quests are cool, and they really sometimes help you learn how to play the game, almost kind of like the instructions on how to use certain mechanisms of the game. At the start of the game, you're going to be hit with an onslaught of quests that really help with your gameplay and what you're trying to do. But suddenly, they pretty much stop or come very rarely, and other events happen, but you will find yourself getting hit by the same 3 to 4 quests over and over again, which become very tedious. There are a lot of repetitive quests. There's a few, I should say, useful quests that really help you with your gameplay, but there are a lot of repetitive quests out there as well, which is kind of a drag, and it kind of just makes the gameplay become a lot more repetitive and tedious. I can't emphasize this enough either. This game it's in its beta state, and it's not completely finished, where there's a lot of technologies missing, and you can see in the tech tree it's going to tell you that this tech will be soon to come, and that's very hopeful. But unfortunately, after a few hours playing this game, your save in your life is pretty much going to come to a crashing halt, and there's really not much to do once the game kind of comes to that lack of content wall. You kind of just have to sit there. You can mess around with your nuggets, but you can't really help your civilization progress because there's nothing to progress to. So at the end game of the Universim, it kind of just stagnates. So that's something to notice. I did mention this in the things to know sections, but I do find it a little silly that you have to build a building in game in order to save the game. And I do see what the developers tried to do, make it different from other building sims, and it is a very unique and creative way. It is creative, don't get me wrong, but I just think it makes it more complicated than it really has to be, that you have to create that archive building in order to save the game, because without that, sure, you can hit escape with it and then it says save the game, but if you didn't make that building, you can't save the game. And it just makes a lot more hurdles than you really have to make. It makes things more complicated than it should be, in my opinion. Now, this is one of my biggest issues with the game. Most building sims do have a button where you can speed up time, whether to your liking. You can either do normal speed, speed it up once, or speed it up really fast. The speed up button is there, but unlike other sims, it barely speeds up time at all. If I'm not wrong, it doesn't even speed up tech time, which is fine. But when you look at the difference between normal speed and then the times 1 and then the times 2 speed, there is barely a difference at all. I remember looking at the nuggets and looking at the difference between speeds, and they were moving exactly the same. All that I noticed is that the days change, and I just think that's very concerning, especially for a building sim game. I feel like if you want to go very fast, your nuggets should be able to move very fast. And even though there is that aspect where you kind of have to be observant and keep in mind of certain events, making sure your nuggets don't screw up something, there are times where I don't want the nuggets to get certain materials and having to wait 10 to 20 minutes for that to happen. There are times where I just want to speed it up. So that's something that I feel like needs to be worked on, because other building sims, good building sims, do have that aspect where you can speed up time to your liking. Now, of course, when you're looking at the civilizations, there are seasons because you're on your very own planet. And once you hit winter, not every winter, but there are winters where this event happens where wolf attacks your population. And it does give you the notification of the event happening. However, unlike other events where you can click F and it'll lead you to the event, here it doesn't do that, where you have to play. This situation makes you pay close attention to where the wolves are. But when it's already pitch white and the wolves are basically white and gray, it's very hard to see where they are, and you can easily lose 20 nuggets just from that attack, and you can't really do much about it because you really have to be searching everywhere. And I get it, it's part of the challenge, but I feel like they should at least point you to the general direction where they're coming from, so at least you get a chance of not having to lose 20 people, and that can be 20 believers in you lost completely. And I just feel like adding that zoom into where they could potentially be coming on can be very useful, because the defense towers are, I haven't really seen them do too much. They're not really advanced in my gameplay, but they haven't really been doing much either, and they're really just slipping by and killing my nuggets, and I just found it extremely frustrating. Now, these next couple of things, I'm kind of just going to lump them together because they're kind of minor things, but things I wanted to mention. But since this game, it's in its beta state, there is a lack of content, and you can definitely get 10 to 20 hours on this game. But once that lack of content happens, there's really no point in playing the game until that development comes in the updates. The only reason I see that as a problem now is that people are just going to wait till this game actually comes out in its actual state and rather not support it in its beta. So that's why I feel like the updates should maybe potentially, I know it's hard work, but come a little sooner, because after playing the game, I've almost played the game 20 hours. I really find no need to play more of the game until those updates come. But other minor things I wanted to mention is that the tech tree, it looks really cool, but it kind of just looks a little unorganized. Like, I feel like they can add more wording stating what texts go into certain eras, like the Stone Age, the Medieval Age, and there are kind of just look like texts are kind of placed in random places where certain things are just clumped together, and I feel like that could be worked on. Finally, there are not too many buildings, and don't get me wrong, with the buildings that they do have, they're very unique and they're really cool to look at, and they're very helpful, but there is a lack of buildings for sure, where you can quickly get to the point where you're kind of done making everything you can in the game. And sure, the legendary buildings are really cool, and you have to obtain blueprints in order to create that, certain world wonders that we have in our real world. That is a challenge in order to get them, but after obtaining those blueprints, even with those legendary buildings, I mean, there's really not too much to build. Now, after that tirade, it may seem like I have a lot of negatives about the game, but that's just because I see the potential of this game and what it could do in the Steam community. But I just want this game to do really well. But now that's more or less everything I found concerning about the game. Maybe I missed a couple of things. Leave it in the comments below if you do have any other things you wanted to mention that I didn't. But now I wanted to get into my ending thoughts about the Universim and what I really think about it overall. the Universim. This game is a hidden gem, don't get me wrong. It has a lot of potential to become a great building sim with its really unique gameplay. There is a severe lack of content once the player hits a certain point of their game. However, in due time, there will be content added. What really gives me hope is that the developers seem extremely passionate about their project. You can really see it. So for these reasons, I'm going to give this game as it is right now a 6 out of 10. But I can definitely see this game becoming an 8 or a 9. I really can. So I would really recommend, if you're interested in building sims, that this should be on your wish list. Maybe don't get it right now if you're tight for cash, or you haven't been too convinced by this review or the footage you've seen, or the store page, which I will link in the description below. Then I would definitely recommend get this on a sale then, if that's the case. But this should be a game that should be on your radar. I really do think so. With that being said, that is more or less everything and all my thoughts about the Universim. And if you are interested about the game, I really hope you do get it. If I did leave out something or didn't mention something, leave it in the comments below. I'm really interested if you have the game, if you're gonna get it, or if there's something that I left out that you really wanted to emphasize. And with that being said, I will link a couple more reviews of other games that you might find interested in the cards on this video. But I really want to thank you for listening to this video, and I will see you in the next review. Hope you guys have a great and fantastic day. And like I said, I'll see you in the next review. Bye guys, have a great time.